It began with the smell of rain. Liam used to come home smelling of crisp autumn air, of coffee, and the faint, clean scent of the sandalwood cologne I bought him every Christmas. It was the smell of my husband. Now he smelled of a different kind of storm. It was the ozone and petrichor scent of a city sidewalk after a sudden, violent downpour. A smell that didn't belong to his commute, to his sterile office, to the life I knew. I first noticed it 3 weeks ago. He'd kiss my cheek, his lips a distracted brush of skin, and the unfamiliar scent had lodged in my senses like a splinter. I said nothing. What would I say? You smell like a stranger's rain? He would have laughed, called me poetic, and the wall between us would have grown another inch, invisible and impenetrable. The changes were subtle, the kind you only notice when you've shared a bed and a life for 12 years. It was a new, distant light in his eyes when his phone buzzed, with a tone I didn't recognize. A secretive, soft tilt to his smile as he typed a message, his thumb moving with a frantic, eager energy. He was a book I'd read 1,000 times, and suddenly there were new, encrypted chapters I wasn't permitted to see. Tonight, we were at a dinner party at our friends Anna and Ben's house. The air was thick with the smell of roasting garlic and herbs, the clink of wine glasses, and the warm, easy laughter of long familiarity. Liam was in his element, holding court, telling an animated story about a difficult client. His charm was turned up to a blinding, almost frantic wattage. He was performing. But for whom? For our friends, or for the phone I knew was on silent, burning a hole in the pocket of his chinos? I watched his hands. They used to find mine under the table, a silent, warm anchor in a room full of people. Now they gestured broadly, clasped his wine glass, checked his phone under the guise of looking at the time. They were everywhere, but on me. "You're quiet tonight, Maya," Anna said, nudging me with her elbow as she passed with a platter of roasted vegetables. I forced a smile. Just tired. The PTA fundraiser is sucking the life out of me. It was a lie. The truth was a cold, hard stone in my stomach. The truth was I was watching my husband fall in love with someone else, and I was the only one in the room who could see it happening. Later, driving home, the silence in the car was a physical presence. It was different from the comfortable silences we used to share. This one was heavy, charged with everything he wasn't saying. "Did you have a good time?" he asked, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. "It was fine," I said, my voice carefully neutral. "You seemed lively." He shrugged, a little too casually. "Ben's always good for a laugh." But he hadn't been talking to Ben for most of the night. He'd been tucked away in a corner for 20 minutes, phone pressed to his ear, his voice a low, intimate murmur I couldn't decipher. When we got home, he went straight to the shower. I pretended to be asleep when he came to bed. I lay there in the dark, listening to the rhythm of his breathing, and I knew, with a certainty that turned my blood to ice, that the man lying next to me was already halfway gone. The ghost had a name, Lena. I didn't find it in a burst of dramatic snooping. I found it through the slow, chilling osmosis of shared life. It was in the receipt for a book of poetry left in his briefcase, 1,000 Mornings by Mary Oliver, a book he would never read. It was in the new wistful song he'd added to our shared playlist, something with lyrics about a face you can't forget. It was in the way he started using words like liminal and luminous in casual conversation. He was being curated, influenced. I felt like an archaeologist of my own dying marriage, brushing away the dust to find the artifacts of another woman's presence in my life. I didn't want to be this woman, the suspicious wife, the detective in her own home. But the alternative was to be a fool, smiling blindly as my world was dismantled around me. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. It was our son, Noah's, 8th birthday. The house was a riot of wrapping paper, Lego pieces, and the shrieks of oversugared children. In the middle of the chaos, Liam's phone lit up on the kitchen counter. A text preview flashed on the screen. Lena, just thinking about our conversation last night, it meant so much to me. You have no idea. Our conversation last night, the night he told me he was too tired to talk and had gone to bed at 9 p.m. The world narrowed to that single glowing screen. The laughter of the children became a distant, muffled sound. My hands trembled as I wiped cake frosting from a plate. You have no idea. The words were a key turning in a lock, and behind the door was a truth I wasn't sure I wanted to see. I didn't confront him. Not then. What would I say? You're having meaningful conversations with a woman named Lena? He would have a ready-made answer. She's a colleague. She's going through a hard time. You're overreacting, Maya. Instead, I became a vault. I stored every piece of evidence, every shift in his demeanor, every unfamiliar scent in cryptic text preview. I built a case against my husband in the silent courtroom of my mind. That night, after the house was quiet and Noah was asleep, I did something I'd never done before. I waited until Liam was in a deep, post-birthday party sleep, and I gently lifted his thumb to the fingerprint sensor on his phone. The screen unlocked. My heart hammered against my ribs so violently I was sure it would wake him. I didn't go to his texts. That was too obvious. I went to his email, and I found her. Lena Arsenault, a new marketing consultant hired at his firm 3 months ago. Their emails started professionally. Then they evolved. They were a masterclass in the slow burn of an emotional affair. It was all there, in black and white. He'd written, "Reading your analysis on the Campbell project was like a breath of fresh air. No one here really gets it." She'd replied, "It's so refreshing to talk to someone who understands subtext. Sometimes I feel like I'm speaking a different language." They discussed books, they shared articles about art and philosophy. They offered each other support for the frustrations of their respective home lives. He complained about me. Not directly, not viciously, but with a weary resignation that was 1,000 times worse. Maya just doesn't understand the pressure I'm under. She's so wrapped up in the PTA and Noah's schedule. It's like we're on 2 different planets sometimes. And Lena, the understanding, luminous Lena, had replied, "It's a special kind of loneliness, isn't it? To be surrounded by people and yet feel completely unseen." I read their words, these digital love letters, sitting on the cold bathroom floor, the glow of the phone illuminating my tears. He was sharing his soul with her, the parts of him I used to cherish. His intellect, his vulnerability, his dry wit were now her currency. He wasn't sleeping with her, not yet, but he was giving her everything else. He was giving her the man I fell in love with, the man who had slowly faded from our marriage, leaving behind this busy, distracted stranger. This was so much worse than a physical affair. This was a migration of the heart. I began to see her everywhere. In the new, expensive coffee beans he bought, in the way he started listening to a podcast about French New Wave cinema, a subject he'd never shown an interest in before. Lena was a ghost, haunting my house, and I was the only one who could see the furniture moving. I became a shadow version of myself. I tried to be more interesting. I bought the books he was discussing with her. I tried to engage him in deep conversations about life and art, but my attempts felt clumsy, desperate. He would look at me with the polite, distant curiosity, as if I were a student who had suddenly started speaking in a foreign language. "You're different lately," he said. one evening, looking up from his phone. Am I? I said, my voice tight. Maybe I'm just trying to find my way back to the planet you're on. He had the decency to look guilty, but he said nothing. The wall was now a fortress. The suspense was killing me. The not knowing was a constant low-grade hum of anxiety. I had to see her. I had to put a face to the ghost. I called in a favor from an old friend who worked in private investigation. I just need a picture, I said, my voice shaking. I just need to see what she looks like. The photo arrived via email 2 days later. I opened it in my kitchen, bracing myself against the counter. Lena Arsenault was not a bombshell. She was interesting. She had intelligent eyes, a messy bun of dark hair, and was wearing a tailored coat standing outside Liam's office building, laughing at something, her head tilted in a way I recognized from Liam's new mannerisms. She was the kind of woman you'd see in an independent bookstore, the kind who looked like she had thoughts you wanted to hear. She was perfect, and my heart shattered into a million new, sharper pieces. The confrontation happened on a rainy Sunday, much like the one he now smelled of. It was the anniversary of our first date. He'd forgotten. He was in his study, on his laptop, a soft smile playing on his lips. I knew he was talking to her. The house was quiet. Noah was at a friend's. I stood in the doorway watching him for a moment. This man, my husband, in a bubble of shared intimacy with another woman, in our home, on a day that used to be sacred. Who is Lena? I asked. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the silence like a gunshot. He flinched, slamming the laptop shut. The guilt on his face was a confession in itself. What? She's a colleague. I've told you about her. No, I said, stepping into the room. You haven't. You've hidden her. You've hidden your conversations, your jokes, your complaints about me. You've hidden the fact that you're in love with her. His face hardened. Don't be ridiculous, Maya. It's not like that. She's just a friend. You're being paranoid. Paranoid. I let out a bitter laugh. I read your emails, Liam. I read how you feel unseen by me. I read how she illuminates your thoughts. Don't you dare call me paranoid. This isn't a friendship. This isn't a affair. You've just been too much of a coward to call it what it is. The fight that followed was ugly. It was not a dramatic screaming match. It was worse. It was a cold, brutal excavation of every disappointment, every resentment that had festered in the silence Lena had filled. He didn't deny it. He justified it. You're never present, Maya. You're always just managing things. The house, Noah, your committees. There's no room for me anymore. Lena listens. And I suppose she doesn't have a life? She doesn't have a family to manage? Or is that just part of her appeal, that she has all this free time to devote to your soul? He had no answer. He just looked at me, a stranger, across a battlefield of our own making. He moved into the guest room that night. The house, which had felt too small with the three of us, now felt vast and empty, with a wall between us. The following weeks were a special kind of hell. We moved around each other like ghosts, speaking only about logistics, Noah's schedule, bills, grocery lists. The silence was a living thing, feeding on our pain. I was adrift. The foundation of my life, my marriage, my identity as a wife had turned to quicksand. I felt like I was losing my mind. The suspense was over, but it had been replaced by the agonizing uncertainty of what came next. Would he leave? Would he choose her? Or was this a wake-up call, a brutal, painful one, but a chance to save what was left? I saw a therapist. I told her about the ghost, Lena. I told her about the emails, the rain scent, the profound sense of betrayal. She didn't steal him, my therapist said gently. The door was left unlocked. The question is, do you want to change the locks, or do you want to board up the house forever? I didn't know the answer. The turning point came from an unexpected source, Lena herself. She sent me an email. My address wasn't hard to find on the PTA website. "Dear Maya," it began, "I know you have no reason to ever want to hear from me, and I will understand if you delete this immediately. I need you to know that I ended all communication with Liam 2 days ago. What happened between us was wrong. It was a fantasy built on shared frustrations, and it was unfair to you and to his family. I got caught up in the connection, in feeling understood. But I see now that it was a shadow of a real relationship, one that avoids the hard, messy work of building a life together. I am deeply, truly sorry for the pain I have caused you. Liam is a good man who is lost. I was a distraction, not a destination. The choice he makes now, whatever it is, will be about you and his family. It won't be about me. Lena." I read the email 5 times, sitting at the same kitchen counter where I'd first seen her name. I felt no triumph, only a profound, weary sadness. She had been a ghost, and now she was laying herself to rest. She had given me back my agency, my power in this situation. The suspense of her was over. Now it was just him and me. I printed the email and left it on his desk in the guest room. An hour later, he knocked on my bedroom door. He looked shattered, older than his years. He held the printed paper in his hand. "Did you read it?" he asked, his voice raw. I did. He sank onto the edge of my bed, his head in his hands. "I'm so sorry, Maya. I'm so sorry. I don't love her. I think I just loved the person I was when I was with her, the person I used to be." The dam broke. For the first time since this nightmare began, we talked, really talked. We talked about the distance that had grown between us, about the pressures of work and parenthood, about how we had stopped being lovers and friends and had become business partners in the enterprise of our life. It wasn't a happy ending, not yet. It was the beginning of something harder, the long, painful road of reconciliation. We are in counseling now. Some days are good. Some days, the ghost of Lena and the ghost of the man he was with her still haunt the corners of our home. The trust is gone. A shattered vase we are trying to glue back together, piece by painful piece. But we are trying. And in the trying, I see glimpses of the man I fell in love with. Not the charming performer, but the real, flawed, vulnerable man. And he is starting to see me again, not just the manager of his home, but the woman he once promised to share a life with. The emotional affair was a poison, but in its horrific, devastating wake, it forced us to look at the disease that was already killing our marriage. The ghost is gone. Now we are left with the messy, complicated, and terrifyingly real work of learning how to see each other again. And the choice of whether we can and whether we will is a suspense that still hangs in the air, thick and heavy, with every breath we take. The story of our marriage is not over. The next chapter is ours to write, and the pen, for the first time in a long time, is held in both our hands. The question that remains, the one that will keep you wondering long after you finish reading, is this: will we write a tragedy or a story of redemption? The final page has yet to be turned.